The first bullet tore through the barn wall just above her head. Splinters rained. Smoke curled in from the other side, thick with pitch and kerosene. She didn't flinch, just pressed the boy's head harder into the dirt under the floorboards, and whispered, "Don't make a sound, Noah. Not even God should hear you breathe." Outside, horses stamped, men shouted, words twisted by fire and panic. A second shot punched through the door. The lock snapped clean off, swinging open to flames licking inside. She didn't look back. Her boots were already pounding across the packed earth, rifle in one hand, blood-soaked cloth tied around her thigh. She moved like someone with nothing left to lose. At the far fence, a shadow rose, lean, tall, unmoving, just watching. She raised the rifle. He didn't move. "Say something," she growled, eyes darting between him and the barn. He didn't. A scream tore the air behind her, one of Tull's boys. The barn gave its last breath in a column of black smoke. She didn't look, didn't dare. She ran for the hills. Behind her, the stranger turned and walked toward the flames. Later, the boy crawled from the hole. Ash clung to his hair. His lips were cracked. He looked small in the ruin, like a grave marker no one dared carve a name into. He didn't cry. He just walked to the burnt door, stared at it, and sat. That's where the stranger found him, boots crunching softly. The kind of quiet that doesn't belong in a place so loud with ghosts. He stood over the boy a moment, then crouched. "You hers?" he asked. The boy said nothing. "Thought so," the man said, then stood. "You're coming with me." The boy didn't move, so the stranger knelt again, picked him up gentle-like, then turned and walked away, stepping over the remains of men who'd screamed too late. No one in town asked where the child had gone. No one asked about the barn. A fire was a fire. Tull's boys were dead. Delia Kane was gone, and Marshall Tull himself was still out there, pissed and bleeding somewhere. Best not to be involved. Only old Maddie from the trading post watched the stranger ride out with the boy on a second horse. She squinted from her porch, lighting a clay pipe. "He don't ride like a preacher," she muttered to the wind. "He rides like a man with sermons buried." 2 days north, deep into broken land, the stranger made camp in silence. The boy stayed close but said nothing. The fire crackled. Coyotes howled once, far off. "Name's yours to keep," the man said, sharpening a long, curved knife. "Don't care if you don't speak. I seen enough war to know what silence means." He placed a tin plate near the boy. Beans and hard bread, a worn blanket, a glance, then back to the knife. "You got her eyes," he added. The boy blinked, then reached for the bread. She watched from the ridge that night. Delia Kane, scraped raw by thorns and time, belly wrapped tight, a fresh scar on her cheek. She hadn't slept, hadn't cried, hadn't spoken since the barn. She just watched the two shadows below, the man and her son, eating in silence, lit by orange flicker. She didn't move closer. Not yet. She didn't know who he was. But she knew the look. Men like him didn't ride for coin. They rode with graves behind them, and one more still to fill. Marshall Tull found her trail the next morning, a boot print in river mud, blood in the leaves. He grinned through a split lip. "She's headed north," he told his 2 deputies. "Toward Preacher Land." Thought, "She was dead." "She is," he said, kicking his horse. "Just don't know it yet." They rode hard. By dusk, the stranger handed the boy a gun. A small Colt, half-rusted, oiled careful and ready. "You don't shoot to warn. You shoot to end." The boy just looked at him. "If you can't do that, you better learn to run faster than men with purpose." He didn't test him, just set the gun beside him, then pointed at a stump 10 yards off. "Try," he said. The boy lifted it, hands shook. He didn't pull the trigger. The man nodded once. "Tomorrow." Delia carved a mark into the old cedar where her husband once tied his horse. 3 slashes, then 1 across, Apache style. She wasn't born into that blood, but she'd learned enough from her first ride through those hills to know who still watched the land, who still honored ghosts. She'd thought of turning herself in once, years ago. But Tull made sure silence kept her boy alive. She hated herself for it. But not more than she hated him. She was done running. In the morning, the boy fired, missed once, then again. Then the third shot hit dead center. The stranger didn't smile, just nodded. "You're learning," he said. The boy stared at the hole. His lips moved, but no words came, just breath, heavy and hollow. Then he turned to the man and waited for more. But the man just rose, poured water on the fire and said, "We move." Delia watched from the trees, this time closer. She saw the way the man walked, like a soldier out of war with nowhere left to march. She saw the way her boy watched him, like he understood something even she couldn't name. She wanted to run to him, but she didn't. Not yet. That night, the stranger pulled out a folded piece of parchment, a list, smudged with blood, water, and something darker. He crossed out the name Briggs. The boy leaned over. "Read it." The names were old, rough. He pointed at the next. Delia Kane. The man met his eyes. "She's the reason," he said flatly. "And she's still breathing." The boy didn't react. The man added, "Don't mean I'll kill her, but I need her to see what's left of me." The boy nodded, then turned away. Delia watched them sleep. She wanted to scream, to run in and take her son. But something about the way the stranger lay, back to the fire, facing the dark, made her pause. Men like that didn't fear wolves. They feared what they'd already buried. Noah stirred in the night, turned toward the fire, and for the first time since the barn he whispered one word, "Ma," but only the wind heard, and it said nothing. The wind cut sharp through the canyon as they rode. The boy clutched the saddle horn, eyes scanning the ridges. He didn't ask where they were going. The man never said. But each mile rode further from law and closer to something rawer than justice. At a shallow creek the man stopped. Water trickled over red stones, silent as breath. He knelt, washed his face. Scar tugged against the cold. The boy stood still, rifle slung across his back now, not because he wanted it, but because the man had put it there. "You'll need it before long," the man said without looking up. The boy didn't answer. "You can't outrun the things you don't name. That includes fear." Still nothing. He stood. "Suit yourself." They mounted again. By midday they reached the old church. Half its roof gone, doors chained, cross splintered by lightning long ago. The man dismounted slow, staring up like it meant something to him once, or maybe never did. He pushed open the door. It screamed. Inside, pews were toppled like fallen men. Dust hung thick. The altar had a bullet hole through it. He lit a match and sat the boy in front of it. "This was the last place I prayed," he said. The boy blinked. The man opened a saddlebag, took out a worn book, Bible by the cover but hollowed inside. Instead of scripture, a list of names carved into folded leather. Some scratched out. Others waiting. He slid his finger down the page. "You ever hear of Franklin Moore?" The boy stared. "Didn't think so. He was a preacher once, not the good kind." He folded the list and put it away, sat in the back row, elbows on knees. "They took my girl here. Said she was Apache, said she was wild, but all she did was speak truth." The boy watched. No questions, no tears. The man looked at him like a mirror he wasn't ready for. "You remind me of her. She never cried either." Thunder cracked overhead. Dust shook loose. The boy stood, walked to the altar, and touched the bullet hole. He didn't flinch. The man saw it. "You think I'm bad," he said quietly. The boy didn't move. "You're right." They slept there that night. No fire, just the storm outside and silence within. Before dawn, The man rolled up his bedroll, left the book open beside the boy. The name at the top wasn't Moore, it was Kane. By the time the boy woke, the church was empty. The man was already riding. Delia Kane sat alone on a stone ledge 10 miles east, watching smoke rise in the distance. Her hands trembled as she cleaned the rifle, not from fear, fatigue. Her face was cut, eyes sunken. She hadn't eaten in a day and didn't care to. She turned her head when she heard hoofbeats, slow and heavy, not urgent, not afraid. The kind of rhythm you only hear from a man used to burying things behind him. She didn't raise the rifle. "You here to kill me?" she asked. The man stepped down from his horse, looked her over. "You don't look surprised." "Would it matter?" He shook his head once. "Not to me." She stood, gun at her side, not drawn, not ready either. "You found my boy?" He nodded. "Is he breathing?" She closed her eyes. The tension left her shoulders all at once like a rope snapped, but when she opened them she was back to hard. "I remember you," she said. "You were there." He didn't deny it. "I didn't know they were gonna do that, not that day. But you stayed." "I stayed," she admitted, "because I thought maybe they'd spare him. I was wrong." "You were." He pulled out the list, let her see her name. No weapon drawn, just the quiet gravity of a man following a line carved in bone. She looked down at it, then looked up. "You came all this way for revenge?" "No," he said. "I came for peace. You think killing me gives you that?" "No, but watching you reckon with what you've done might." She laughed once, short, bitter. "There's nothing left to reckon with. My husband's dead. My name's Filth. My son don't speak." "That's a start." He turned to go. "You gonna leave him with me?" He paused. "Would you want that?" She didn't answer. "You ever tell him the truth?" Delia's hands tightened around the rifle stock. Her voice cracked when she spoke. "I told him his father died a hero." "That's a lie." "I know. Tell him the truth. He won't understand." The man looked back at her, eyes hard. "He doesn't have to, but he deserves to hear it from you." Then he left her there, with dust in her throat and guilt like a weight too old to lift. The boy found her hours later. He approached without
fear. Just stood across the fireless pit she had made and stared. Her lip quivered. She didn't run to him. He didn't speak. She knelt. "I tried to keep you safe," she whispered. "That's why I lied." He didn't react. She reached into
her satchel and pulled out a photograph, worn, edges curling. His father, younger, smiling, a man before the rot. "I thought if I made him a hero, you'd grow up strong." The boy took the photo, looked at it, then at her. "Did you kill him?" She broke. The tears came without noise, without shame. "No," she said, barely audible. "But I let the man who did get away with it." The boy nodded once, sat beside her, said nothing. The man watched from the rise, list folded in his coat. He scratched one more name. Not because justice was done, but because something heavier had passed, not blood, truth. The sky bruised with thunder as the trail narrowed into broken rock and dust. The boy followed behind the man, rifle tied across his back, eyes low. Neither spoke. The wind filled the quiet with old stories no one asked to hear. They passed the carcass of a deer, half-picked by buzzards, bones clean like someone had done the job careful. The man dismounted and knelt beside it, pressing 2 fingers to the ground. 3 men, maybe 4, riding heavy, last day or so. The boy said nothing, just adjusted the strap cutting across his chest and waited. "You hear that?" He pointed to the ridgeline. Not a sound. And that was the problem. "No birds. Just quiet," the man said, standing slow. "Means trouble." They rode single file through the pass, every shadow long and every echo suspect. By dusk, they reached the cabin, Roof caved. Door swinging on one hinge. Inside, blood. Not fresh. Not dry. A trail dragged toward the woods. The boy stepped in first. Stared at the bullet holes in the wall. The man watched him. You ever see what a man looks like when he dies slow? The boy didn't turn. Still time to turn back. He shook his head once. Didn't think so. He walked in after him. There were boot prints in the mud, one dragging like the man had limped. There was a half-burnt badge in the stove, iron still warm from earlier. Tull's men had passed through here, chasing ghosts. The boy knelt beside. The stove picked up the badge, turned it over. The man nodded. You keep it. Might remind you what men in power really look like. They didn't sleep in the cabin. Too many walls, too much memory. They camped beneath open sky. Sometime after midnight, the boy rolled over. His voice, when it came, was brittle. Was my father on your list? The man opened his eyes but didn't move. No, but he should have been. Silence stretched between them. He was one of the ones in the room. He was the one who lit the lantern. The boy didn't speak again, but he didn't sleep either. At dawn, Delia found the cabin. She stood at the threshold, hand resting on the door, staring at the blood trail. Her jaw tightened. She didn't need to follow it. She already knew it ended at a shallow grave, probably unmarked. She turned toward the trees. The horse she'd taken from Tull's dead deputy limped slightly, but carried her true. She followed the hoof prints up the trail. Slow, patient. She found them at the creek. The boy was crouched, refilling his canteen. The man stood nearby, pistol holstered but hand near it. She rode up without a word. The man turned his head but didn't draw. The boy saw her and stood straight. Didn't run, didn't smile, just looked. She dismounted. No greetings, no names. She offered jerky from her saddlebag. The boy took it, chewed in silence. The man raised an eyebrow. I didn't invite you. You don't own the land. No, but I know what it's owed. She stepped closer, pulled a folded sheet from her coat. Weather-worn, smudged. Another list. She handed it to him. He opened it, scanned. His eyes narrowed. This yours? My husband's. Before he died. He kept notes, names, details, things that don't fit tidy in a sheriff's report. The man studied it. A name on it stopped him. You knew? I suspected. I never looked until he started bleeding. Then I looked. Too late. You think this makes it right? No, she said. I think it makes you pause. The man folded the paper, put it in his coat. He looked at the boy. You trust her? The boy nodded. Then she rides with us. They didn't speak for the next hour, but when they broke camp, the boy walked beside her. That night, they camped in a basin carved by old rain and flash floods. No fire, no talk, just stars and the sound of boots shifting on gravel. The man polished his revolver with the kind of care that said it wasn't about killing, it was about purpose. You believe in judgment? He asked Delia. She stared at the sky. I believe in regret. Not the same. No, she said, but it's all I've got left. The boy rolled over and stared at the man. Who's left? The man didn't answer. He pulled the list again. Only 2 names remained. One crossed out, one left. The boy reached out and touched it. Tull, he said. His voice didn't shake. The man nodded once. Tomorrow, he said. They rode at first. Light, dust rising behind them like ghosts trying to catch up. Tull was waiting. 3 men, rifles ready, dug in at the edge of a dry gulch. They'd seen the tracks, seen the fire. They knew he was coming. What they didn't expect was the boy up front. Tull raised his hand, signaling hold. Bring the woman. Let the boy watch. He'll learn what betrayal costs. But the boy didn't stop. Didn't draw either. Just walked down the slope. Slow. Tull stepped out from cover. Boy, you don't want this. The boy didn't blink. Heard your mama filled your head with lies. That stranger put a gun in your hand but didn't teach you what it's for. Delia stepped. Interview, rifle raised. Drop it, Tull. He laughed. You don't get to give orders. You killed him. Your husband? He spat. He was dead the second he started digging into that ledger. Then why lie? Because liars win, Tull said, until they don't. Shot came from the ridge, not hers. The stranger stood above, rifle still smoking. One of Tull's men fell. The second tried to run, too late. The boy raised his Colt. A pause. A breath, then he lowered it. The man finished the job. Tull stood alone. Delia walked to him. No trial, he muttered. No more lies, she said. She didn't shoot him. She turned her back. The man approached, gun drawn. Tull looked up. Please. The man holstered it. You're not worth the bullet. He handed the Colt to the boy. You decide. The boy raised it, then dropped it in the dirt. Tull wept as they walked away. No cheers, no words, just dust and wind and three shadows riding into the dark. The boy stood by the fire with the Colt still at his feet. He hadn't spoken since the gulch. The man hadn't asked. Delia moved like her bones were made of stone, each step deliberate, her hands raw from gripping reins too tight. The ride had drained them, but not as much as the silence afterward. He watched her from across the fire, eyes flickering like he was trying to measure her truth. She offered him jerky and a flask of water. He took both. Didn't thank her. Didn't need to. When the wind kicked ash into the boy's face, he didn't flinch. He let it sting, let it settle on his skin like it belonged there. The man sat on a flat stone, unwrapping the list one last time. The parchment looked different now, lighter somehow. One name remained, but he stared at the margins, the ones already crossed out. Some slow, some violent, some with a word before the end, others with nothing but a glance. Delia watched him, eyes sharp in the dark. You got what you wanted. He didn't look up. I never wanted this. Then why the list? To remember. She chewed slowly, jaw tight. You remember everyone? I remember the way they died, and whether they deserved more. She nodded. That ain't peace. No, he said, but it's honest. The boy picked up the Colt, turned it in his hands. The metal was warm from the dirt. He didn't raise it. He didn't put it down either, just held it like he was waiting for a reason. In the morning they packed in silence. The man mounted first. Delia checked the boy's saddle, cinched it tight, and brushed his shoulder before walking back to her horse. She didn't speak. They rode toward the old mining town of Brim Hollow. The buildings stood crooked, like time had kicked them sideways, and no one cared enough to set them straight. A single bell hung in the steeple of a church that hadn't held a sermon in 20 years. The town breathed dust and old regret. A few men leaned against posts. One squinted as they passed. A woman at the window pulled her curtain aside, then shut it fast. They stopped outside the saloon. The man dismounted, nodded toward the boy. Stay close. The boy tied off his horse. Delia stepped off hers slow, eyes already scanning the second story. Windows. Inside, the air was warm with sweat, whiskey, and the kind of silence that meant someone had just told a bad truth. A piano stood unplayed. 3 men at a table stared as they entered. One spat into a cup. Behind the bar, a tall man turned. Grey hair, pale eyes, calm hands that stayed below the bar too long. The man approached. You Franklin Moore? The barkeep smiled, thin. Not for years. You remember the girl with the copper earrings? The smile faded. I remember a lot of girls. She was Apache. Moore's hand twitched. I don't think you want to bring that back up. You think wrong. Moore's hand moved fast. The man moved faster. The shot tore through Moore's shoulder, sending him backward into a rack of bottles. Glass shattered. The men at the table stood, hands hovering near pistols, but didn't draw. The boy stepped in the door, Colt in hand. Delia stood behind him. Moore groaned behind the bar. Blood soaked his shirt. The man stepped around, kicked the pistol away. "She cried when you took her," he said. "But not for long." Moore coughed, tried to sit up. "She wasn't supposed to be there," he hissed. "Neither was I," the man said. He raised his revolver, but the boy stepped forward. "No." The man turned. "He deserves—" The boy cut him off. "He already has it." The man stared at him, and for the first time something broke behind his eyes. He stepped back. Delia knelt beside Moore. "You'll hang," she said. Moore coughed, again lips red. "I've outrun worse." Delia stood, walked to the man and touched his shoulder. "Let the law handle this." He nodded. Slow. They left him there, bleeding but alive. Outside, the sky stretched wide, a hard blue broken by wind. The boy climbed into the saddle, holstered the Colt, didn't speak, didn't smile. They rode through the edge of town as the bell in the steeple rang once, sharp, sudden, like it remembered it had a voice. By nightfall, they made camp near a dry creek bed. The man stared into the flames, list in his hand, the last name untouched. He didn't cross it off. He didn't burn it. He folded it once, then again, and dropped it into the fire. The flames licked it quiet. Delia sat beside her son. He leaned into her, head against her side. Her hand rested on his shoulder, fingers twitching like she was afraid he'd vanish. The man stood and walked a few paces into the dark. When he looked back, the fire was a small thing behind him, and the boy was no longer looking at him. In the morning, he was gone. No trail, no prints. Just the faint sound of hooves in the distance and the wind settling into a peace it hadn't known in years.